Excellent. So welcome everybody to our wonderful presentation. I'm going to share a screen here. Oops, slideshow, sorry. There you go. So as many of you guys might know, some of you might not, my name is Allison. I am one of the owners at Skydive Vancouver Island, along with my husband, Gord. And a few years ago, we actually started some safety seminars. Mostly it was just our safety day and the tandem instructor safety seminar. And some great things came out of COVID, including Zoom and all of us using this wonderful technology. And we decided to last year host some safety seminars on different topics. And today I'm very excited that we have a safety seminar series for instructors, all you guys. And I am also happy that Monique, when I called her and was like, hey, Monique, do you feel like being the presenter for this? She was like, heck yes. So I was super stoked about that. I'm going to give her a brief introduction. If you guys don't know Monique, well, then you shouldn't be skydiving, period, because, you know, we all know Monique. She started jumping back in 1989 when she was 19 years old. Just kidding, I don't know. In Pitt Meadows, and has loved this sport with all her heart and most of her money ever since. Her first coaching course was a C1 with Gary Bouchard in Victoria, and that got her going on the coaching stream. Monique competed in four-way FS for many years and really loves the team aspect of this sport. She fully enjoys making embarrassing rookie mistakes when learning disciplines and skills that are very new to her. Her favorite part of jumping is free fall. She loves exiting a plane, feeling the air, and flying. Her second favorite part of this sport is seeing other people learn new skills. There's nothing quite like that moment when you can see the light bulb go on and someone gets it right in front of the air in front of her. So that's her quote. Her least favorite part of this sport is seeing people get themselves into situations that they shouldn't be in. Monique is the chair for the CSPA Coaching Working Committee, or CWC, and there's been some debate on what this is actually called, but has been an instructor facilitator, or master instructor, or just the genius behind instructing. I'm not really sure. And she guesses sometime between 2007 and 2009. So without further delay, because this is hers, not mine, I am going to welcome Monique to join the stage here.
Hey there. Thanks, Allison. The correct term is learning facilitator or coach developer. Those are kind of the two roles that, that Danny and I have, as well as a number of other people. Hi, everyone. I made this comment before we officially started, but just kind of looking at the group that's joined, this is a super experienced group, which is wonderful. So, you know, you guys all know everything, so we're done. Later. No, but I think let's try to make this as interactive as we can. So we can certainly use the chat bar, which is hopefully not being recorded based on the comments I see. We can certainly use the chat bar to make comments, or just unmute yourselves if Allison gives us permission to do that. Yeah. So I'm going to do a little screen share, and hopefully I can get that right, and then we will get rolling. Can I do a screen share? Pretty sure. Yes, I can. All right. So this, the subject of this seminar is instructor and coach safety, right? I think it was just instructor safety, but I tossed in the coach for bonus points. And of course, we want to cover that because we want to be safe personally, but that was the subject 2 weeks ago. What we want to talk about now is how we can make our students safe, right? So what are the things that we can do as skydivers, but also as instructors, coaches, and leaders to help our newer participants be safe. So as I was thinking through the subject matter for this, I thought of some things, right? Are you ready? Is your gear ready? Is your knowledge base ready? Do you have any idea what's changed over the winter? So before we even start thinking about instructing or coaching, we personally need to be ready, right? This is, I think, fairly obvious. We need to first personally do all the things that were discussed at that first session 2 weeks ago for ourselves. And then, you know, think about your gear. Have you gone over your gear? Have you replaced your worn parts? When's the last time you read the first jump course content? Especially if you teach at more than one drop zone, which I know a lot of us do, it's really important to be kind of current and refreshed on what the content is at each drop zone. So let's dig into these a little bit. Just as a little basis for our conversation, I just wanted to bring up the wonderful AIM reporting that Allison and her team put together. So I focused on the student AIM reports, and I just wanted to take a moment to consider this, right? Accidents, bad things have happened. Incidents, bad things almost happened. Malfunctions, kind of neither here nor there. And of course, a fatality, right? So this is student accidents. And the blue bar, of course, is the one that we're most concerned of. Nobody wants to see a student get hurt, right? As an instructor, it absolutely is a terrible, terrible feeling when a student gets hurt, and you can think to yourself, ugh, if only I had. So that's a feeling that we all want to avoid. Why isn't it clicking? There we go. What part of the skydive did they occur in? So this is just students again. So some of them occur at exit, a bunch of them occur at deployment, and a lot of them occur at landing. So I think that's important context for us to think about when we're thinking about instructor safety. You know, where do our students get hurt? Well, near the ground, for the most part, and when they get out of the plane. So let's go back to our list. The first thing I wanted to touch on is gear. Of course, everyone needs to get their reserve repacked. And of course, your rigger, hi Dave, hi Colin, can't pack everyone last minute. So please plan ahead. You'll probably need 2 cycles, and that's okay, right? We're all professionals in the sport. Accessories. So this one's on us, not our rigger. I have personally, you know, entered the season a few times forgetting to replace my batteries and getting into my first jump, and on the way up, like, didn't beep. Or like my visor on my cookie has like those rubber gaskets, and it just didn't feel quite right. And I kind of ignored it, and then it didn't go so well, right? It opened up in free fall while I was with a student. Never a good thing. So just basically think of anything that has batteries or anything that has elastic in it, and look at it, right? Is it worn? Does it need replacing? Do you need to order some spares? Deal with that stuff. Make sure you've got jumping shoes. We all know that accidents are usually the result of a chain of events, right? So this may seem like a really small thing and more a personal thing, not an instructor thing, but could a failure of a small piece of my equipment or your equipment be the first step in the start of a chain of events? Could, right? It sure could. I did put cameras on the list. I'm a big fan personally of using my camera when I need to use my camera. I don't love adding complexity for no reason. So if I don't actually need to wear it for the jump, I will typically take it off. It's relatively easy to do with my mount, but if you do jump with a camera all the time, and especially for work jumps, just make sure that it's ready to go. Please try to get a snag-free mount, right? Especially if you're in free fall with students in any way whatsoever. Stuff happens, right? Stuff happens and it's very bad. Any comments or questions so far? Keep on trucking? All right. So knowledge. I love this. PowerPoint really helped me out with these little icons. I didn't find these things. Knowledge. So I don't know about you, but I always have to kind of make a conscious effort to get back into it at the start of the season, right? My brain's been off doing other things and it's busy. And even if I've been jumping over the winter, hi Dave, jumping for me is a different mindset from jumping as a coach or jumping as an instructor. So I have to kind of consciously take some steps to do some things to think about what's happening. So talk to your friends, watch some videos, attend some seminars, gold star for everyone here. Read some articles, read some technical material. There's lots of really great stuff out there that's been published to just kind of help you turn that jumping brain back on again. One of the changes, speaking of knowledge, that happens over the winter is the CSPA Board of Directors will review and approve PIM changes, right? So PIM 1 always gets changed over the winter, and it's usually published around in April. It's not actually up yet. The spring 2022 update isn't out yet, but here's a little sneak preview of some stuff that I know will be in there. So there's a change to the 5-second freefall delay jump. There's a change to the military conversion process, which will not affect too many people, and a change to Coach 3, where we've added a skills jump for wingsuit and for canopy piloting for demonstrating your skills, as opposed to performing on a record or attending a competition. There are no COP changes. So for those SSEs among us, we did not make any changes last year. We didn't get any complaints, questions, or other suggestions. So we didn't make any changes, but we will kind of circulate through a pool of questions probably next year or the year after. The 5-second solo freefall delay. So this is kind of a fun story. This change actually started with a jumper suggestion. So a fellow who was jumping out east emailed the office, identified a potential issue with the current wording. And the office forwarded the question to us and the coaching committee. We looked at it. We talked to the technical and safety committee, went back and forth a couple of times, made a proposed change, and suggested that to the board. So the issue basically was that 4,000 feet is a very concrete number, and a lot of drop zones aren't really doing their 5-second delay at 4,000 feet. And, you know, is it really important that it be done there? Not really, right? If you get right down to it, the reason for that jump is to show that you can exit, regain stability promptly, and pull your parachute. So we changed, made a couple of wording changes. So I don't know exactly what the words are going to be in there, but that's just like a small change that's coming up. And it's a nice example of, you know, democracy in action. Does anyone have questions about that particular change? There's a lot of kind of opinion leaders in this group right now. So if anyone has questions, please let me know. Seeing none, carrying on. Other changes. So, sorry, I'm just moving my little window around with your beautiful faces. There we go. Changes at the drop zone. Stuff has probably changed there too, right? Most drop zones have an instructor briefing at the start of the season. You should absolutely attend that. You should absolutely attend the currency day that they have before students start happening. It's super, super important. Coaches and instructors are role models, and we're part of the drop zone staff. People watch us. They take their cues from us. And then over the winter is when the drop zone owners have a chance to update their manuals and such. So gear gets switched out, maybe some canopies, maybe a new brand of container, maybe the jumpsuits are new, I don't know. But you should know, right? What's changed at your drop zone. So the only way to know if your first jump course manual has changed is to read it. So I highly recommend that you actually pick up a copy of it and read that baby through, start to finish at the start of every season. I still do, right? Many years in, I still like to go through the manual and remind myself and look at my highlighted parts and the parts that I've started, because they're the ones that I forget all the time, and make sure that I'm current on it. And even if the manual hasn't changed, maybe something else has changed. Maybe there's a quiz that's changed, or a procedure for a checkout jump, or maybe there's new posters on the wall, or new information on the Drop Zone's website. So whatever that is, you should be aware of what those changes are. Other things, aircraft. You know, if the step has changed on your aircraft, or if any of the procedures have changed, or, you know, the actual plane has changed, then these are absolutely things that you need to go to the airplane, you know, as a group of instructors, and practice all the things, practice the climb outs, practice the exit positions, practice how you're going to pick up your students' grippers and harnesses, and where you're going to place your pilot chute. Like, all that stuff has to be tested. Do you have a new pilot? We all know that it's pretty relevant to dispatching or spotting for a student if our pilot is new. And if our pilot is new to this flying around, doors open, people hanging off the plane kind of thing, they're going to struggle a little, right? They're not going to be as responsive to you. They're going to need a bit more lead time for everything you want them to do. You're going to need to be a better instructor to kind of cover for the pilot at first. Other important staff changes would be new instructors. So to pick on Trevor, he's going to be a new instructor at SVI, right? Everybody knows him, but he doesn't necessarily know SVI's. Exactly, right, Danny? He doesn't necessarily know SVI stuff intimately. So the team will have to help their new instructor get up to speed. The whole team needs to learn to work together, right? And integrate the new staff. So that takes open communication and a willingness to learn all the good things. The landing area, just as a reminder, landing is where our students hurt themselves, right? So I can pretty much guarantee that something has changed in your landing area. Don't know what, but the only way you're going to know for sure is to walk out there and go for a good long back and forth and see, right? Have some of the nearby obstacles changed, have some trees come down, have some, God forbid, power lines gone up, new installation, soft ground, hard ground, rodent hills, whatever, right? So you need to go on out to the landing area, the student landing area, and walk all over it and check it out and remind yourself what it feels like. And then gear, we talked about that already. Has your wonderful drop zone owner gone shopping over the winter and got you some new goodies? Please find out what those are. Go first. Okay, Allison, are you monitoring the chat? If anyone says anything other that I need to hear, you'll let me know.
I am, yes. And just a reminder, if you do have a question, you can go in the reactions and raise your hand in there and we'll identify you as well. So.
Okay. Ratings. I'm preaching to the choir here, I think, right? Just kind of scrolling through the names. I think everyone knows this, but obviously you can't be an instructor if your affiliation's expired, which mine personally is right now, right? So I absolutely need to reaffiliate because I expired about 2 weeks ago. Not being affiliated would be just a guaranteed ticket to a courtroom for you and your friendly DZO, you know, if something bad were to happen. So BSR number 1 says that we must be trained and endorsed, and the endorsed means our ratings have to be current, our affiliation has to be current, and yeah, we need to know what we're doing. Let's just talk about currency a little bit because it's kind of a ever-changing thing. So over COVID, we did reduce the currency requirements to about 60% of normal. So instead of doing 10 PFFs to stay current, you had to do 6, or 10 coach 2s, you had to do 6. And they're back to 100% now. So most of Canada last year had a pretty normal season for the most part. So the currency requirement for anybody renewing basically from now on is back to 100%. They're still not unreasonable, but if you or your drop zone are facing some kind of particular situation, you know, COVID related or otherwise, please do reach out to us to discuss the options instead of just kind of moaning and complaining about it. It works so much better that way. The currency requirements, they're kind of a pain sometimes, right? But they're designed to be achievable and they're designed to keep us current, to help keep our students and novices safe. And they also overlap. So just as a reminder, you maintain your coach 2, you automatically maintain your coach 1. You maintain your PFFI, you automatically maintain Jump Master Restricted and coach 2. So there's a nice little graphic on the CSPA website. All the currency requirements are outlined. There's a PDF fillable form on the website that you can fill in. Yeah, again, currency requirements have been, a lot of people have had opinions on them. So if you find that your drop zone's having some kind of structural or ongoing problem, you know, please do reach out to us to discuss it. Also, remember, it's not a one-shot deal. So you can maintain your currency in 3 of your ratings and let 1 lapse. For example, I let my Jump Master lapse when we stopped dispatching students because there was just no way that I was going to stay current enough to hold someone else's pilot chute in my hand. So just remember that it's not a one shot, right? You can maintain in one rating and let another one go. It's not a problem. The revalidation, if you're uncurrent for from 1 year to 5 years, is super, super simple. It's basically an Easter egg. I don't get it. It's basically designed that one jump with a certified person in that same rating is going to get you recertified. So it is not a difficult process. As a little kind of system hack, if you're getting towards the end of the season and for whatever the life reasons, drop some reasons, whatever, you're like, I don't think I'm going to hit my currency requirements for XYZ rating, that is okay. You can actually go right ahead and do that supervised jump with somebody who is current. And that also maintains your ratings currency. That's kind of like a little hack. If you're more than 5 years expired, the process is a little harder and it requires a bit more supervision and in some cases actual jumps. It's listed on the CSPA website. It's in PIM1 and it's also in each ratings portfolio, which is also on the CSPA website. So to pick on someone whose name might start with a C, there was somebody who was renewing their Coach 2 lately who was more than 5 years expired. And the form came in just revalidated as if it had been like a 1 to 5 year, but there actually is a requirement to do a thing to revalidate after 5 years. There's a form to fill out and an actual evaluation to do. So I can never remember exactly what the details are, but they are on the website and in the portfolios.
Danny's just posted that link on our chat.
Thank you, Danny. Wonderful. I guess that brings up one other little subject, which is, and Allison showed this to me the other day, sometimes our CSPA documents are not consistent, right? So there will be something written in a portfolio. Danny's laughing because he knows. There's something written in a portfolio. There's maybe something else written in the instructor manual, and there's something else in PIM1, and maybe a fourth thing on the website. PIM1 is right. Okay, so PIM1 is the guiding document. It's reviewed and updated very, very carefully, and it's reviewed and updated annually. So in the case of any discrepancy, PIM1 is correct. And if you aren't sure, you can always email the office and they will forward your question to anyone or whoever can answer the question. Skills. So we do need skills at the start of the season. Free fall skills are obvious. We talked about that. Do some jumps for yourself. What else? So I'm just going to pause for a moment and let you guys brainstorm what else, because I love interactive stuff.
Monique, would you like me to unmute everybody? Or do you want them just putting it in their chat?
No. Yeah, sure. Let's just unmute everyone just for a couple minutes or a minute.
Sounds good.
Okay.
I'll go. Observation skills. Do you remember what to look for when you're working with students?
Presentation skills. So you talk like you know what you know.
All right, good effort. We'll move on.
Evaluation skills.
Here's my list. So spotting, right? Most of us on this call, just kind of looking at the names, are from Cessna drop zones, and spotting is still a real thing for us. So that's a skill. Climb outs and exits, especially in the case of a new kind of airplane. Pilot chute placement, very important. Highly suggest that you practice that on somebody who's not on their first jump early in the season every time. Situational awareness and judgment. This one's a little fuzzier, right? But are you sharp? Are you making all your good choices? Are your routines smooth at the start of the season? Mine aren't, right? So when we build strong routines and we execute them super, super consistently to the point that it almost hurts not to do it, we're building good safety routines for ourselves and for our students. So coming along with that, reaction time to unusual situations, right? It's going to take us just a little bit longer when we're not current to kind of process what's going on and react to it. Our site picture, you know, yes, for us personally, from the air down to the ground, obviously, more or less obviously, we need to refresh that site picture, but also for those of us who are ground control instructors from the ground up, for those of us who are observing canopy skills, right? What does that canopy look like at 600 feet? You know, that mental image, especially if we're newer, that has to be built again or refreshed. What Danny mentioned, skill analysis, right? What are we looking for? What is good enough? What are those skills supposed to look like? And are they performing it well enough? And then canopy skills, personal canopy skills, student canopy skills. That was my list. And attitude. Arriving ready to jump means having your gear ready, but it also means being like mentally ready to skydive, right? For example, for myself, my work is just insanely busy from March to mid-May. So if I were to haul myself out to the drop zone right now and just pick up a student and go, I would not be all that I could be, right? My husband tells me I'm completely clueless, basically useless. So it would maybe be a good idea for me to take my tired, tapped out little self for a jump for myself. That would be helpful. But should I take a student for a first jump? I would say, you know, probably not right now, right? So, you know, when Trevor's driven down, it's not that long of a drive. I won't use you as an example. Basically check yourself, right? Check yourself if you're ready to go skydiving. What are you bringing to the drop zone, and is it all good enough?
Hi, Monique. Jamie Coulter here.
Hi, Jamie.
I would just, one thing I was thinking about when you were talking, sorry to interrupt if it's okay.
That's okay.
Our drop zone has been totally renovated, new runway, new taxiway, new everything. So, and there's new people coming out. So I would suggest too that, you know, even the most experienced jumper doesn't need to be doing a 4-way or whatever. Do a solo jump, pull high, get the lay of the land, and look out for the new people that are coming out, because half the people don't know what's really happening at our drop zone. So I would suggest that for any jumper going out to the drop zone. Make sure that the lay of the land is the same as it was last year, and you know what you're doing, and dub down your jump and pull high and take a good look. Our drop zone, we don't even know what's going on right now, kind of thing. So just a thought.
Yeah, absolutely. Any kind of large change, first of all, be aware of it. And second of all, like, give yourself a little time to get used to it. And it takes more than one jump, right? It's going to take a few. Thank you, Jamie. When bad things happen, we're all human. Humans make mistakes, right? So it does happen. If we have strong systems from the drop zone perspective and strong personal routines to do all our mental and physical checks, that helps to prevent those mistakes, but it can't really eliminate them completely in a system that has human beings in it. So when we do happen, we need to learn from those mistakes. The AIM report is on the CSPA website. A lot of people fill out the descriptive part reasonably well, but they miss out a bunch of the data, right? So then when the TNSC is looking at the data later, they don't know, right? What kind of training program was this student on? What kind of exit was it, right? Like, what are the consistent, what are the particular factors in the data that you know, but please, you know, write it down with checkboxes and words so that we know, so that we can do better data analysis on it. And just a reminder that while there is a location there, nobody sees that location, right? That is extremely confidential data. I don't know the location of any of the AIM reports that I see. I don't know who sees them other than Michelle, but I would guess it's almost nobody. So while you're putting a location down, it's never ever to shame you. It's just for reporting purposes. Cedric.
Hi, hello. Little question about the AIM reports. What's a dynamic or opposed exit method? I don't know.
A dynamic exit is nothing that you're really, I think, ever going to use. So a dynamic exit for a student, it's basically if you're like poised in the door and then you're leaping out to present. I can't show you on the tiny little screen, but you're like on the edge and then you're like dynamically presenting. So it's some kind of moving exit. So you're not just like hanging and letting go or having a grip and releasing and opening up. You're actually moving to the exit.
Okay.
To help your imagination, we used to use it on a Cessna 180, which just had a little tiny peg and not a step in a wheel. So there was no way to actually climb out of the aircraft.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Anything else? The last part of the AIM report is recommendations by a drop zone safety officer. And we have noticed that these are not well done, right? So the drop zone safety officer, and there's a bunch of you on this call, collectively could do a better job of those recommendations. Really thinking about why the incident occurred, especially, and what should be changed in the system to prevent an accident. So anytime we have an incident, ideally as a drop zone, we would spend a little bit of time discussing it and debriefing it and thinking about what is the root cause? Does something need to change so that we don't turn this thing into an accident? As a little example of this, this is the last slide, and I didn't have time to finish it, sorry. The last season, there were 4 student AAD fires. So that's not good, right? That's not good news. So this CSPA office sent that information sanitized to the CWC and the TNSC and asked us to think about like why that might be. So we spent a couple of weeks over it, actually, just kind of back and forth, and had a couple conversations about it to identify. So there's a low pull happening, okay, or a no pull in the case of some of them, which is what led to an AED fire. But why, right? So why was there a low pull? So was it a physical gear issue or was it a decision-making issue? And it turned out that in all 4 cases, it was a decision-making issue. So then we went in to read the stories, and they were basically distraction control issues, where there was either an uncontrolled turn or some kind of other distraction that occurred. So then we had to ask ourselves, why is that happening? So we had a few theories about why there were more uncontrolled turns than usual. And then why didn't they pull anyway, right? I mean, yeah, you're in an uncontrolled turn, that's fine, but you're supposed to pull anyway. So why didn't they? Are they missing timed training on the ground, right? Were they doing, did they have a stopwatch on them, on like a stopwatch ulti as part of their training? So they were building that time sense. Did they not understand that they needed to, pull time? And it's hard for us to do that kind of analysis without a lot of data, but we did, do our best, and it ended up in Allison's report. So I would just encourage you as drop zone safety officers and senior instructors, when there is something hinky, to take the time to really think about and discuss as a group, not to point fingers or lay blame, but just to think about like, why did this happen? And what is the root cause and what can we change? And if you aren't sure, CSPA would be more than happy to help you, right? We can do it on a confidential basis, reach out to the office, someone from the TNSC who's not from the area, whatever, can be assigned to kind of help think through what might have been the problem or the issue. I believe that is all that I have. Brian Forbes is right on time. Hey, Brian. So that's what I had kind of prepared for today.
Awesome.
Just a little bit of thoughts about things that we should all do at the beginning of the season to try to be our safest start of the seasoners, right? The start of the season is a time of year when we do hear about bad things happening. So let's try not to do that.
Excellent. Minnie, thank you so much. And I just wanted to point out that Gord also posted on the chat a link to the safety management system. So the actual analysis of all the incidences from 2021 accidents, incidents, and malfunctions, and also previous years. And just to kind of add on to what Monique was saying about that, 2 years ago, the Technical and Safety Committee recognized that there was more opportunity to be had with that data and actually analyzing it a little bit further. Thank you, Monique, for definitely speaking to the detail of those reports, because it is, the equipment side of it is also important to understand trending, whether we have to go to manufacturers, those kind of things. As is malfunctions, no matter how little the malfunction might seem. But we do it, like Monique said, you know, we actually had, there was 6 AAD fires, 2 from experienced and 4 from students, but it helps to identify a trend, which actually was the, that's what brought this meeting about this season, is what we kind of talked about, you know, currencies and how COVID affected currencies of instructors and those kind of things, and kind of identifying that root cause and bringing something like this forward. So essentially from here, this is, like she said, an amazing group, and I'm sure that many of you might have some awesome questions. I know Monique likes to have that open forum. I'll just remind you, if you could please, in your reaction tab on the bottom, there is a little icon that says raise hand. It'll look like that on your screen. I will help to monitor that and get to each person equally as we go through that. When you're done and your question has been answered, oops, you can lower your hand. If you don't want to ask the question on an open forum, you can certainly just go into the chat, and Monique or I could read it out, and then it can be answered from there. Again, thank you, Monique. And just kind of opening up the floor, is there anyone that has a question right now for Monique? And I'm assuming this can be like in detail about stuff or on more general stuff as well. So,
or if anyone just has a super great tip and something that I didn't mention, let her rip.
Opening the floor, anybody? See, Monique, you're just that awesome. There's like no question. Oh, I've got a question from Mr. Voss.
Hello, is my microphone working? Okay, great. On the island, it's kind of unique. Like you've said, there's drop zones in 2 locations. There's a lot of drop zones that are not open anymore. So there's lots of crossover from people who've trained students in one location and then are seeing students at another drop zone. This happened to me, and I just wanted to bring it up. There's a deployment system that was unfamiliar to me on a student, on a PFF. I did not expect to see a cocked pilot chute on a student parachute. Never seen it before in my life. It's not that it wouldn't happen. It's just that's the kind of thing that you have to check for, and you have to expect that when you're familiarizing yourself with the equipment. Been teaching on Victoria for 30 years. Never in my life did I think I'd see a pilot chute on a student rig that needed to be cocked, but it presented itself, and there it was. And one thing we were talking about on the weekend when we were doing some training jumps, I think Brian brought it up, is there's a school in Toronto that uses spring-loaded pilot chutes and ripcords, and there are people, believe it or not, who go from one part of the country to the other, and they're still students. So you can expect to see students, of course, with students migrate. CSPA is a national association, and you can bring your student training with you from one place to another. So that's a great idea. I'm glad Brian brought it up, that you as an instructor really need to understand, even if you or just your students are moving from drop zone to drop zone, it takes a good suggestion to spend some time with that student and really get to the bottom of what kind of training they've done, what they're expecting, and what you can expect, because surprises are never fun.
That's actually a good point, Pete. Not last year, but the year before, there was a student incident report, I believe. And also last year, two of the low pulls, or at least one of the low pulls, was due to a transition training, right? So this person had been used to a ripcord where you hold the handle, and then they were transitioning to BOC where you don't hold the handle, and they held the handle, resulting in an AED fire, right? So it is important. It is important to know where your student's coming from and to understand that, like, almost every drop zone in Canada uses a BOC system, but not all of them.
Surprise.
And I think that from being someone who audited that, one of the suggested actions as well is it's really important for instructors to be very detailed in logbooks when they are putting information in a student's logbook. It's important information that it shouldn't just be like happy faces and like, yay, taking that time, especially with students, to have good logbook entries for them.
Mhm. And when you're working with a new student, you're doing skill analysis and you're watching the fine details of what they're doing when they're practicing. Try to pick up those anomalies.
Yeah,
I
and
agree.
maybe
There is only one, but nevertheless, they have volume, right? And the volume travels.
And
Yeah, you
don't take
show
their
the
word
student
for their
your-
experience levels either.
Right,
Are you
they all
talking
know
about
everything.
instructors?
I'm just gonna ask that we don't all talk over each other just because no, you're okay, Monique. You're the facilitator. You're allowed to. But just for everybody else, there is several people on this call. So if you want to comment or anything, just raise your hand and I will get to you. So Trevor, do you want to unmute and I'll let you say what you were saying?
Sorry.
Okay.
I said, don't take their word for their experience level either. Because they always have like the greatest misconception of their abilities. Usually anyway, I find anyway.
Yeah, in either direction, right? They could think they know nothing when they're actually pretty decent, or the other way around. But you're right. I mean, one of the main things we do is skill analysis on the ground, in the air, and all the parts in between.
And Mike, you've got a question there or comment? Oh, I think I muted you. Sorry, Mike.
There we go. So my first one is a comment on that. Drop zones where you have multiple instructors, and then especially in areas where you have students that might even be going between drop zones. It's really helpful not just to put your CSPA number on there, but clearly write your name as an instructor, because we all know each other. And I'll often reach out to that other instructor and say, hey, what was this guy doing? What he's telling me isn't making any sense here. And it's way more useful to talk to the instructor, because usually it's only been a week or two and they'll remember, everything about their student that they can pass on to you. But I do have another question for you, Monique. So you mentioned a military SSI conversion, and I'm just being lazy here and I'm not going through the CSPA website, but is there also military conversions for other ratings as well, such as like PFFI and JM? And what about for USPA? Because we've had both of these come up in the last couple of years, where we've had USPA instructors come up that want to teach under the CSPA system, as well as military instructors too. So, and it never seems to be clearly laid out from CSPA what that requirement is, or it seems to change all the time. It's very confusing.
It does change. I don't know that it actually changes all the time. We just try to put more information out when we get asked, but yes. So the short answer is yes, there are conversions from a lot of things to a lot of things. There isn't currently one for Jump Master, because the systems are so variable, right? If you're coming from a different country, was it a static line? Was it an IID? Does the country even do IID? Like, who knows, right? So there currently isn't a conversion system for JM. There is conversion from any FAI rating to PFFI, and there is conversion from a military, I believe it's the MFPI rating, I think. I'd have to double check. The in-error one to PFFI. We've had a couple people follow that route. There's also coach conversions into either coach 1 or coach 2, depending on kind of the source country and what that rating involves. And the SSI, there's a military conversion for it.
Okay. Do we have a link to these on the website?
Yes. So they're a little bit stealthy, but
Oh, Danny's on it.
On each website's, on each ratings page, there's a link kind of on the left-hand side to the conversion stuff. So you have to say, oh, I want to be whatever, go to that page and then follow the links from there.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll check that out.
It looks like Danny might have just posted some of those in the chat as well. Thanks. Alan.
Hi, just going back to the student logbook thing. I remember a time when I saw a logbook that had a student who'd written stuff in themselves, which totally baffled me. I didn't catch it immediately. And it wasn't until after the skydive that I went back and looked at it again and went, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. What you did versus what you're supposed to know. That's how I figured out they had written things in their logbook that it, if I had carefully examined the handwriting of what was there and then what was added, I would have maybe caught it. But if you didn't know to look for it, sometimes a student will add some stuff in there that tells you something that they didn't do.
They certainly shouldn't. I mean, we encourage our students to write in their logbooks because it's a skill you need to learn. But then the instructor also, should write their version into the logbook, especially if there are concerns that need to be mentioned for sure. And then again, to go back to my very favorite thing, skill analysis, right? As you're prepping the student for the jump, if what they're doing doesn't match what they say they did, those alarm bells should be going off.
I have a question from Brian.
Actually, just a comment to that. I have known that to happen more than once, and I've known skilled skydivers who have, like sub 100 jumps. Some bragged about the fact that they did so. I actually like X out any extra space for them to be able to write more information when I sign their logbooks, so that they can't do that to my signature.
Interesting. I mean, I shake my head in their general direction, right? Like that's not cool. Who are you trying to impress with your fake logbook? I don't know. That is definitely not okay. And that's a good strategy. Thanks.
Go ahead, Danny.
Just to add to the conversion question, because it often gets misconstrued, is if you do have a foreign rating and you are converting it, it's not just a straight across conversion. The conversion process is essentially you not having to do the course. You'll still have to do the portfolio. CSPA is very unique in the fact that we have the course where we teach you the skills, we evaluate the skills, and then we give you the opportunity to go put those skills in practice and have them evaluated at a local level with the local expertise, and then you get signed off. So even though you may have thousands of C2 equivalent jumps in a foreign rating, the conversion process is just going to get you to the portfolio level. It does irk some gears, but that's our process, and it's much more thorough than other large skydiving organizations. So just want to make that clear.
When you say the local expertise, Danny, are you referring to a learning facilitator or saying another experienced instructor?
Yeah, so like yourself as an experienced C2, or like so when someone comes off my C1 course and they come back to your drop zone, they have their portfolio of 3 contacts that they have to complete, and it's the responsibility of the local C2s and SSEs to ensure that those portfolios are completed correctly and signed off before they're sent back to the office. And then myself as a ratings processor simply goes, yeah, Mike had the right ratings, Rob had the right ratings to sign those off. We've met the criteria that this person was evaluated at the drop zone level by the appropriate expertise.
Okay, that's good. That takes a lot of load off of having to pin down a learning facilitator, which is much tougher for these people.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let me just add to Danny. So almost every conversion process involves proving your competency in some way, right? So whatever that rating is, you're going to prove that you can do the thing in 1 or 2 jumps. But there's no magic wand rating conversion. But we think that's completely reasonable to ask someone to prove that they can do the thing they say they can do. That involves a learning facilitator. Okay. But then the portfolio completion for them does not. That's completed at the drop zone level. So as Danny says, the portfolio can be filled out at the local level, and also, the local senior instructors and coaches should be evaluating out of the corner of their eye or fully looking at it and giving them feedback if they need it.
Excellent. I'm just going to run a really quick poll. It's just to find out what everyone's ratings here are. So just take a minute to fill that out if you don't mind.
Oh, I don't get to do the poll.
Oh, darn it. Were you excited about having 100%?
Mm,
Oh, that's hilarious. Oh,
I don't
I'm
have
almost,
100%.
I'm almost at, well, probably of the ones that I have put on here, you do.
Not JM because I'm not current.
Oh yeah, that's right. I see, I wasn't paying attention. I got 2 people who haven't, 1 more, who's the last? Oh, yay, there we go. So I'm just gonna share the results just so everybody is seeing what's on here right now.
I love that almost everyone's a ground control instructor.
And actually, that Monique, that kind of leads me into my question for you. Obviously, I do not have any of these ratings, but I have a lot of staff who do. In particular with the GSI, what are your kind of suggestions for like preparing in that? Like, recurrency jumps are great and all that stuff. And what do you suggest for GCIs to get warmed up for the new student season, knowing that landing issues are one of our biggest areas of incidences and accidents with students. And as much as I know, we always love to say, there's multiple root causes to these things. Not that I put it on GCIs, but sometimes it is the GCI. So what would be your suggestions on that? And I'm going to stop sharing this little screen.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely the best way to practice your GCI skills is to put on a student rig and radio each other. That has 2 benefits. Number one, it reminds you what it feels like to fly student gear, right? How far down you actually need to pull to get that baby to do things, and what the flare feels like. So it is educational to actually fly that student canopy once a year. And then at the same time, you can also be either practicing dispatches if you trust each other, or or you can be practicing that ground control instruction. And just watch a lot of parachutes, right? Like, you shouldn't be hanging around looking at the ground if you have nothing better to do. You should be hanging around looking at the sky if you have nothing better to do. Just watch all the parachutes. Any other tips? Danny's got a fair bit of GCI. Pretty sure Mike does.
I was going to say basically the same thing. It's watch any and all landings. I personally will stand in the field, and even if I don't have a radio on people, I pretend I'm bringing them in for turns and flares. Are they flaring at the same time that I would have said flare for them on that canopy in those conditions? Did they stand it up? Did they eat shit? Where was I in all that? There's always opportunities to practice GCI.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Sorry, Monique.
Go.
I was going to say the biggest things I've taken from ground control and where I see students getting hurt are low flares. And it's either one, the instructor has flared them too low and not given them enough time to respond, or they're just very, very slow to respond. So gauge your student in the air, see how they respond to your radio commands. Are they quick to respond? Are they really delayed? And try to preemptively give them that flare command a little early if they're going to need it, but just err on the side of early. I'd much rather flare a student too early and too high than too low and too late. And I've seen so many students hurt their ankles or their knees or their back from just low flares or no flares. And we should never be doing that to them as instructors. Definitely flare them too high if you're going to err on one side or the other.
Thanks, Mike. And Mr. Forbes, Brian. Go ahead, Brian. I think
Brian needs to click on his unmute button.
I know. Brian, if you're muted.
Is that better? Can you hear me now?
That's much better. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. I just have a comment that by luck, I was in Australia skydiving. And at the drop zone I was at, they had an old guy, and it makes me now think that I might be that guy very soon, that at their drop zone videotaped all of the landings that they could. And using the nectar of knowledge at the end of the day on the big screen, while everybody sort of sat around and had a beer at the end of the day, they watched all of the landings from the day and critiqued them and would go over it. And I thought, what a concept, what an idea, what a thing to think about doing. Have suggested it a couple of times. It's not for everybody, and it doesn't necessarily go over well with those that don't manage to, dig that one out. But it is something to think about as coaches, to try and get somebody to capture the landings at the beginning of the season and look for things. And it also made a number of people realize or watch their own landings, and you don't usually watch your own landings from the side, and therefore it was quite interesting to be involved in that as a concept. So just something to throw out there.
That's cool. Danny, you had your hand up there.
Yeah, I was gonna build on that idea there. And Mike Froelich, JBM there, can speak to this. We made it very common for us to, review. We did just that, Brian. We filmed everyone's landing, student experience, tandem, so on. But also, end of the day, instructors coming together with all of our videos through the day, JM, C2s, C1s, and reviewing what we saw on the jumps. It did two things for us. It allowed the senior instructors and coaches to provide feedback and critique where it was required on the more junior coaches and instructors, but it also, as a group, allowed us to see what was happening in our training program with our students, with our novices. So, if JBM wasn't around the next weekend, I may already have an idea what his students were doing with him as a JM, and it really just disseminated that information. I believe it was Campbell River. They keep journals of their students. The instructors and coaches kept journals of their students' progress, private from the students, solely for the benefit of the coaches and instructors for that exact same reason. We can't share information enough as instructors and coaches about the progress of both our students, ourselves, and just the programs that we're working within at a local level.
And it was quite successful for Kamloops. I mean, you guys basically have a reputation for collectively knowing how to fly your parachutes. So it seems to have worked out pretty well. In order to learn it, you have to pay attention to it. So I really like that idea, what Brian said. And just to follow up on the GCI question, one other thought is I'm a big fan of team GCIing, right? Especially early in the season. I like to have a friend with me, especially if I have multiple students in the air. And if I'm not doing anything, I am more than happy to go out and team GCI with somebody else who's holding a radio, because then I get that sight picture, that practice, no pressure, think about it, pay attention, and just kind of get back into the swing of it.
Thank you guys. There is also in the chats from Ridge, on that note, curious as to whether other drop zones do any recurrency jumps for the JMs. Their DC 182 single pass 3.5K, one regular dispatch, one emergency high, one emergency low. Skydive Vancouver Island, we don't do IAD, so we do PFF. So we do not, but I don't know if anyone on here has any comments about that.
Yeah, we've previously done it here before, maybe not quite to that extent of, like, I assume when you say emergency, it's the get out of the plane now. We discussed that on the ground, practice on the ground where required, but we definitely practice dispatches, especially the difficult dispatches. Perfect students day in, day out. I'll do them anytime, but it's the difficult ones that you want to be ready for in the IAD scenario, right? Ones who don't want to climb out, ones who don't want to let go, ones who are, going to force you to pull the pin manually, right? Those ones are definitely worth practicing. And you don't necessarily have to go into the plane in the air for those. It is definitely acceptable to practice that stuff on the ground, and you can get more repetitions out of it for sure and spend less money.
Excellent. Do I have any other questions, comments, feedback?
Oh, Paige made it.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Monique, you're just a rock star.
I was just flipping through the pages, and because it was mostly guys, the faces that were on my screen that I see. Ness is here, Tamada's here, Samantha. Yay, it's not a sausage festival. Go girls.
Any other questions? Oh, see, they have they do it with regular students in regular jumpers in student gear, not actual students. I like that. That goes to back what you guys were saying about be a student again. What's that like?
Skydive South Sask is the only drop zone I'm aware of that rigorously does that at the start of the season. I think it's a great idea. I've never done it, but I really like it as a concept. Oh, and Saskatoon as well. All right, they've brought the idea. They've brought the idea an hour north or however far it is. Good, good. I like it.
So again, anyone questions, comments? This is the opportunity. We're all either skydiving or getting into it. Monique, I really appreciate your time. I know this is a crazy time of year for you. So again, I really, really appreciate that. Obviously, as you guys know, if anyone does have questions for Monique, she is the chair of the CWC. Yeah, coaching.
Co-chair.
Co-chair. Oh,
yeah,
co-chair.
Yeah, Jeff and I are sharing now.
I apologize. I should know
okay.
that. So, you know, it's engage your questions all the time. No question is a dumb question. It's important to have this information. And again, just Monique, thank you for taking the time to remind us as instructors what we need to do. I will be posting this. A lot of people I know will be watching the recording of this. And before I sign off for the night, I just wanted to let everybody know there are still 2 safety seminars remaining. Next Tuesday, we're excited to welcome Bill Pentney he's the chair of the Technical and Safety Committee and team. He's got a couple of co-presenters, and they're going to be presenting Tuesday at 5:30 for riggers and packers. So very excited about that one. And to wrap up safety seminar series this year, we have the last Tuesday of April will be Derek Clausen, and he is doing a safety seminar for movement and free fly. So definitely something to, if you're a free flyer or you're thinking about tracking and angling and all that fun stuff, by all means, it's a great one for you. Sorry, my dog is barking in the background. I'm going to stop the recording. Again, Monique, thank you on behalf of Gordon and I, and to all of you guys who attended. I really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day as well to be part of this. I'm going to stop the recording and then we can have just open conversation. Thanks.